I'm Sarah Bortz in Quito, and in conjunction with NAREIT's REITworld 2020 annual conference, I'm speaking today with Jon Bortz, Chairman, President, and CEO of Pebblebrook Hotel Trust. Jon, thanks so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Sarah.
Can you start by providing us with an update of the operating status of properties in your portfolio?
In March, we closed all but 8 of our 53 hotels. We suspended operations. We did it really rapidly when it was pretty clear that the travel demand was coming to a quick end. Since May, early May, we began to reopen. We started with our resorts, and we reopened all 8 resorts. And then as demand has slowly recovered over the last few months, including through last week when we opened our 39th out of 53 properties. So we have all but 14 that are reopened. It represents about 76 or 77% of our 2019 EBITDA. And the portfolio overall is running in the mid to upper 30s from an occupancy perspective, which would be down from mid 80s in 2019. Weekends are the strongest, clearly, from really the segment that is the one that's most active is leisure. People are taking vacations, getting out of the home. We've seen that recover to about 50% as a combination between the resorts and our city properties. And our resorts have been running in the 80s on the weekends, combined Friday, Saturday. So we've seen a really healthy recovery on the weekends, and it's weekday where the challenge is because there is a lack of business travel, whether it be transient or group.
What impact could a possible substantial second wave of the virus have on the already hard-hit lodging sector?
That's a really hard thing to prognosticate on because we went through a resurgence in the summer, particularly in the southern markets, and its impact was actually fairly limited that last go round. So we did see some specific impact in Florida where they actually closed our Key West properties and our Miami property. But outside of that, we really haven't seen much impact when there's been a resurgence. Now this one, who knows how big it's going to be? It certainly seems like if we're here in October and we're already up to 80,000 cases a day, that these numbers are going to go much higher. But it seems like most of the markets we're in, it's not really having much of an impact on travel so far. But clearly that's the big risk we have is what is the reaction, both governmentally and in terms of whether people decide that they're gonna pull back on what has been what I would call a sort of grinding recovery.
Taking us through the other side of this, what needs to happen for the hotel sector to return to something approaching normal?
Without a doubt, there are really 2 things. One is we need to control the spread. However that's done, whether it's the mitigation measures like masks and physical distancing and washing your hands and being disciplined and being smart and doing contact tracing and a lot of testing. And so it really is about both controlling the spread and mitigating and also reducing the outcomes, right? So if your outcome from getting the virus is you take something like a Tamiflu for COVID-19 and you don't end up in the hospital, you don't end up in the ICU and on a ventilator, you just have a flu, the equivalent of what we know as the flu. You feel rotten for a week or 2, but you don't die from it unless you have significant other conditions, then I think people will get back on the road. We're going to learn to live with this if we don't have a silver bullet answer. And so part of that is the mitigation efforts. Part of that is the vaccine. Part of that is a therapeutic that reduces the outcome. Unfortunately, it seems like we're not going to get to that point until sometime mid-year or later. And so between now and then, what we hope is more and more people will feel comfortable flying, particularly as we've seen these studies that have come out that have said, look, it's certainly pretty safe to fly. In fact, probably safer than going to the grocery store or going to the gym. And so as more people travel and they say, that was an okay experience, I felt safe, people behaved, they wore their masks, it wasn't an onslaught or an elephant trampling of getting on or off the plane, then I think we grind higher. We recover a little bit each week and each month as we get into the spring in particular. And then maybe by mid-year, we start to see a significantly greater amount of business travel come back in particular, and group later in the year. But I think those are the two that are really going to be the laggards. And of course, that represents about 2/3 of travel.
Can you talk about the significance in today's climate of opening the Hotel Xena in Washington, D.C.?
It means a lot to us, that particular hotel. Hotel Xena is the Washington, D.C. Opening of what we call our unofficial Z collection, which are these really unique lifestyle, individualistic hotels with specific narratives that we think are relevant to the market that they're in. And obviously the relevancy of Hotel Xena, the narrative here is a celebration of the empowerment of women and the women's fight for equality over generations, really thousands of years, right? And we commissioned in the hotel about 60 plus individual pieces of art from artists that we found around the world to express what that means to them in their own media and in their own country and language and from their own perspective. And the art is incredible. It's integrated into the hotel. I think, this is not a hotel for women. It's not meant that way. We men should be celebrating the empowerment of women. I mean, I'm a child of a very strong woman who worked in the Baltimore City school system and, who was the driving force in raising 3 sons. And for me, I never really thought of it any other way than frankly, how powerful women are. My mother ran the household. And she worked and she did everything. And I think that's to be celebrated, but clearly that's been a struggle around the world. And so we have a wall that honors 220 different women and men who have fought for equality for women. And I think it even goes beyond just women at the end of the day. It's really gender equality. It's wealth equality. It's opportunity equality. It certainly seems timely with these events. We started this a couple of years ago. So I think the events that we've been living through over the course of this year make this extremely timely.
Jon, thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure. I hope the listeners find my comments useful.
And for more news and information from REIT World, be sure to visit NAREIT's website, REIT.com.